Chase throwing on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a grab.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's the warrior spirit right there, boy.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
90-yard touchdown. 90-yard touchdown.
It's going to be picked off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Herbert sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Guyton. Caught. Touchdown, Chargers!
That's the greatest throw I've ever seen.
Yes, hello, welcome all. The Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Andy Prophet, joined by my Aussie brethren, Jack and Alistair. Hello, boys!
G'day. Hey, mates.
How are we going?
Not good?
Ah.
Yeah, not amazing, but hey. It is
And a little bit of a special edition today. Great friend of the show, the Cali King himself, Kyle D. Dominic Antonio.
Who the H-double fuck are you?
I'm Kyle.
Carl.
Kyle.
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 Please, Kyle. Yes, Kyle. That's good, Kyle. Give me those numbers, Kyle.
Woo! Welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us on the show.
I am just happy to be here for emotional support. I know everyone's a little crushed right now, so
Who the H-double fuck are you?
I'm surprised you guys didn't cancel me and just bring on a therapist personally, because this is a rough weekend, man. This is a rough one.
I hear you, man. There was many needs for cuddling, and emotional support is pretty bang on. Look, like I said, thanks for joining us again. It's always a treat to have you on the show and pick your brain. Look, real difficult to stomach that result. We'll get really into depth on that. How's life? How you been other than Chargers football this week? Been an exciting start to the season. You good?
Yeah. All's good, man. All's good. It's all 22's been screwing us over a little bit. That's been a bummer for just us football fans. That was a rough week. I'm trying to do my numbers crunching for defense, and I wasn't able to get to it till I don't know about you guys. I didn't get the all 22 footage until Wednesday evening.
Yep.
And then once you get there, it makes it so for those of us that are trying to screen record and capture things, it grays it out. So you have to screen record the entire thing and then go back and convert it to an MP4. But it's all good. It's all good. Just been tough stomaching that loss along with this other stuff that's going on. I went out and played hockey that night, and I stress ate so much during that game. I wasn't having beers or anything because I knew I had a game, but I just stress ate. And by the time I got to the rink, I couldn't move. I was just immobile, just could barely get around, thought I had to puke the whole time. It was brutal, man. So here we are.
Yeah. Well, I can say for absolute certain that Alistair and I both stress drank during that viewing as we watched after work on Friday night our time. And look, we'll get stuck right into it. Thanks again for coming on the show and joining us. We're really excited to have you on. Thanks also to our great listeners, you guys out there, our fans. We appreciate you. Usual drill, if you're new, welcome, thank you. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons so we can help spread our content to the amazing Chargers fans like you guys out in the internet world. And Kyle here as well. He loves the show. He loves subscribing and liking the videos. So be like Kyle. All right, let's get right into gear. Second game down of the 2022 season. On the show today, we'll take a look at what went right, what went wrong at Kansas City. A preview of what to expect in Week 3 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And a bit of a fun game just to round the show out. Without further ado, Los Angeles Chargers 24, Kansas City Chiefs 27. The Chargers defense really came to play in the first half, forcing the Chiefs to punt on 4 of their first 5 possessions. The first of which coming off the back of a dominant mid-air Derwin James tackle on Travis Kelce. Fantastic to see. And a fantastic sideline tackle for loss by the big bear Joey B. And for what started out as a raucous Arrowhead Stadium, the sudden silence was just delightful. Offense without Keenan Allen found a way to take an early 10-point lead before Mahomes replied to have it 10-7 at the main break. Mike Williams cooking. Touchdowns on the opening drives for both sides saw things heating up. Chiefs leveling with a field goal before Justin Herbert threw a red zone interception intended for Gerald Everett, returned 99 yards by 7th-round rookie corner Jalen Watson for the tutty. Down 24-17 and with Herbert under constant pressure as Chris Jones was having his way with Matt Filer, the Chiefs put the game all but out of reach with another field goal, the margin drifting out to 10 points with just 3.5 minutes to play. With what appeared to be a pretty debilitating rib injury, Justin Herbert got the Chargers down the field in 2 minutes for the score, but with only one timeout left, Mahomes took knees and there the game ended. Chargers go 1-1 with the Chiefs, improving to 2-0 and taking the lead in the division. They take the first bout in what should be a great second coming when these two teams meet later in the year. Kyle, mate, your big takeaway from the game. Hit us up.
If I'm trying to give myself the positive spin, the big takeaway was it seemed like one of those games, and we've said this time and time again as Charger fans, but I think it's really compounded in this game, that it seemed like the Chiefs needed every single thing to go their way for the Chargers to lose this game. I feel better about it than I would have if we went in there and the Chiefs just really kind of romped us a little bit. Even with the injuries, I think we showed that our roster is what we believed it was in the offseason, and it took injuries to what did we talk about, like 3 or 4 major starters. Allen, Lindsley, Pipkins, there's a couple others sprinkled in there, but those are the main guys right there. And then those 3 potential INTs that didn't go our way. Biggest takeaway, I think, though, is I cannot stand any media pundit that wants to elevate Patrick Mahomes and him having not thrown any interceptions that game over Justin Herbert for the one pick that Justin threw just because the one time he made a mistake, somebody had sticky hands. So that kills me. That was rough to hear all week. Or for the last couple days.
Yeah, tend to agree with you. Jack, mate, your takeaway.
I think to build off Kyle's point, it's a game of inches, right? The 2 interceptions, Asante Samuel's drop that seemingly hit the ground. I thought he actually got his hand underneath it, and that is a half a second to a quarter of a second technique thing. I was wondering, actually, I was watching the game with a dear friend of mine from school who's actually an AFL football coach. He doesn't coach in the AFL, but he coaches Australian football. And he said, well, why didn't he just take the ball in his hands and just leave it there? Why did he have to go and try and tuck it? Interesting point, and something that perhaps Kyle, I don't know if you've grown up playing American football. Why did Asante Samuel Jr. look to go and tuck it under him rather than just keeping it in his hands, a la Julian Edelman on that incredible catch in the Super Bowl? Why is that? Is that just a technique thing that players are taught to when they've got an interception to tuck it so it doesn't get dropped or punched out? Is that right? Or what's the go there?
Yeah, it looked like to me he was trying to roll it into his forearm. Like he was tucking it, like you said, so he could get up and potentially run with it, is what it looked like to me. You kind of leaned to one side and brought it right into that forearm, and that is where you would be holding it if you were running with the football. So it looked like you could even argue, if you wanted to, that it's almost like he was making that, coveted first football move that really often completes a catch for players. But I think I saw what you saw, and that one was ticky-tacky, right? It's a bam play. I don't know how they could say they had enough to overturn it, and it's not only Chargers fans that are saying that if you hop on the Bird app, but yeah, that would be my guess, Jack, but I there's no way to know for sure for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we can kind of forgive that one because you're right, perhaps he's actually making the move that he's practiced and trained and told to do. But that second one in the end zone, that one, I believe, if he gets that, that's a pick six. No one's catching him there.
Absolute daylight.
Absolute daylight. It's a game of inches, and I really think this game showed that it's a game of inches. And it's just really disappointing. I mean, the amount of times that you get up and yell and scream because you think you've got a pick, and then all of a sudden you're completely deflated because it's been called back. Man, it always seems to happen against the Chiefs, and I was completely spent by the end of it. So that's kind of what my main takeaway. Game of inches. If one or two of those things go our way, other than all the Chiefs' way with all those bloody flags and all that kind of stuff, I think we win this game. But it is what it is, hey?
Execution. And Kyle was saying, Herbert really just had the one turnover-worthy play, or maybe two, and it cost him. Mahomes, there were at least 4 missed interception opportunities in that game. A couple were taken away from the refs. I thought the one to Adderley, where it was called illegal contact on Bryce Callahan, was questionable. I thought the receiver initiated contact on that. But then there were others as well. I mean, Derwin James intercepted him off a Nasir Adderley pass interference. There was one where Asante himself in the Chiefs' red area jumped in front of Jody Fortson, dropped that. He could have gone 99 yards in the other direction. I mean, it's a good PBU. Asante played really well overall, but there were those opportunities. Even Van Noy almost got his hands on one. So you take one or two of those and it's a very different scoreline. One thing that stood out to me, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on it as a group. To me, the obvious change in how Brandon Staley is approaching some of this fourth down decision-making at least stood out to me. Very early in the game on the Chargers' initial drive, on a 4th and 1 at the Chiefs' 11-yard line, Gerald Everett had just rumbled through, got about 8 yards to land just near the first down marker. It's a 4th and 1. We elect to kick a field goal to go up 3-0. I feel like the old Brandon Staley's going for it there to try and build a 7-0 lead. Then throughout the game, there were at least 3 or 4 different 4th down decisions where he's elected to punt. I thought the most egregious was 1 minute remaining in the second quarter. Chargers lead 10-7, balls at the Chiefs 48, 4th and 2. We decided to punt and pin them deep into their own end zone. And I was saying to Andy at halftime, geez, it really feels like the score should be more than 10-7 here at halftime. This might come back to bite us. What are you thinking, Jack? I can see some facial expressions about the transformation of Brandon Staley on 4th down. Are you happy with how it's going? What do you think?
See, I think there's some criticism that's fair there. I get it. But this is a new season and he's got a new defense. The way the defense was playing in that game, I think it's different. The calls are different than they were last season because Staley just didn't have the cattle on defense to really trust them. Clearly last year the offense was far stronger than the defense. This year I think it's pretty much toe to toe. So, and the way that the game was going, the script and how it was being written, I do think that those decisions were correct. I think that the way that Bosa and Mack were playing, the defensive line were playing, that Mahomes was under pressure. Now, that goes against everything that every other coach tries to do, which is try to take the ball out of Mahomes' hands. But they were turning the ball over, or they were almost turning the ball over. So I think those those decisions were justified in my mind.
Well, if you trust your defense, wouldn't you care even less about failing on 4th down? If your defense is so good, you fail at 4th and 2, they've got to march 89 yards down the field, you might get a turnover on defense.
Not in the middle of the field, though. Not in the middle of the field.
Not even with 30 seconds left in the half?
Oof.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kyle, what do you think?
I think we can be too harsh there on Staley.
Yep.
I think the writing was on the wall. I'm squarely with Jack here. You don't go out and...
The analytics say he should have gone for it at least 3 out of those 5. Like, it's crystal clear. The math says you go for it.
Yeah,
but then the math doesn't talk about your opponent and how the qualitative thing would come in. So
And if you looked at our offseason moves, we completely revamped our defense from where it was before. We paid more money than a long snapper's ever made. We brought in a new kick returner. We brought in a new punter. We kept our offense pretty much the same. We brought in a couple key pieces. We have a new tight end. We have a new wide receiver 3-4. But it seemed to me like, just like what Jack was saying, we have a gangster quarterback. We also have a gangster defense. I get pretty hyped when our defense is on the field. Yeah. The thing that I think is a disconnect right now is it seems like Lombardi is calling plays like last year, like he has that 4th down. We're getting to 4th and 2s. We're getting to 4th and 5s. And previously, like you're saying, Alistair, it's not like, I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong either. It just seems like we're getting to where we were before, as if that was part of Lombardi's plan to not be super aggressive, and then we are kicking or punting. So he's going to need to learn to ramp it up a little bit more, I think, on second down and third down. People are talking about that average depth of target. I know you and I talked about that earlier, and that's something that people are concerned about. If you went back to last year and wiped out all of our fourth down plays, because a lot of those were shots. We did sling it a little bit on fourth down because we knew they'd be playing us a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. So if you take a lot of those away, would our average depth of target all of a sudden shrink down? It's a curious thing to think about. So I don't know. There does seem to be a little disconnect there.
Just for some people who like the data on the average depth of target, it was 6 yards in the game against the Chiefs. On 50 dropbacks, Herbert threw the ball past the sticks through the air only 36% of the time. The Chargers' average depth of routes, 4.62 yards per route, when the league average is 6.28.
Yeah, a big one for me on a lot of what I've heard since the game is media pundits really criticizing Joe Lombardi for vanilla play calling. Our offense is kind of boring, and I tend not to disagree with them. We had 15 pass attempts behind the line of scrimmage. Austin Eckler's average reception was minus 2.5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's a lot of balls that are getting thrown in our own backfield. We had 2 pass attempts longer than 17 yards, and Herbert went 2 for 2, 74 yards. So, when you're executing, it is a small sample space, but when you're executing well down the field and you've got the quarterback to do it, and even though we don't have Keenan Allen, you've still got the weapons to be able to achieve that. It just seems like the shutters were on, and just didn't really look like we were taking them off, and that's not
Andy, do you think some of that's to do with the fact that Lindsley was in the game versus not? Because when Lindsley was in the game, it was 8.18 yards per attempt. As soon as he came out, it was 3.10 yards through the air per attempt. Is this Herbert making calls? Is it Lombardi not trusting Clapp and Norton? Or do you think this is something you've noticed from Lombardi longer than just this one game?
Well, let me put it this way. When Corey Lindsley was on the field, we only put up 10 points anyway. So even though the approach was greater and there was obviously more trust in our starting centre, I don't think Will Clapp was that bad.
That's because Staley was being a bitch in the first half.
Yeah, well...
Jeez, there's a lot of hate on here today. Far out, man.
We are
wow.
a little bit over, 48, 72 hours since the thing, and Alistair is still really struggling to
I'm
to
ropeable
get through
because
this.
Lombardi was calling a really good first half. The team was moving the ball, and to Cole's point, we're in these 4th and shorts where he's ready to go for it. This is what the Chargers do. Let's beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. No punts, field goal. You give Mahomes a 3-point margin at the half, you will lose the game.
See, I talked
especially
about
if you're going to go back
week.
into your shell in the second half and play conservative. We are trying to not lose this game.
Hey, and then the injuries happen. You never know why that's happened. That's why you seize the momentum while you have it.
Listen, I spoke about lack of cohesion last week, and a lot of people, I think Andy, you were like, no, I think there was cohesion. I think this week we saw a lack of cohesion between what, as Kyle has pointed out beautifully, what Lombardi is trying to do and what I think what his experience is telling him and what Staley's going. So I reckon there's a lack of communication there. I want to highlight that I don't think Gerald Everett's to blame for that interception pick 6. He's not. If you look at him, and it was great vision of him on the sidelines going, hey man, I'm gassed. I'm absolutely cooked here. As an offensive play caller, or I'm going to start perhaps putting Herbert in the gun a little bit here. The first couple of weeks, I've seen Herbert probably a little more confused than I can remember seeing him last year. Whether it's thinking about, do I go for that first down, or do I slide, do I go? Do I slide, do I go? I'm running around, I don't know where to go. Whether that's because Lombardi's putting more on Justin Herbert now because it's his second year in the offense, it's not Everett's fault. He was gassed as a play caller, whether it's a quarterback or Lombardi. You've got to go, okay, I probably shouldn't be scheming this up here purely because I've got a tight
tempo, Jack.
end.
It's a great point. They came up to the line, ran tempo, 1st and 10 at the Chiefs' 8 or whatever it was. Everett had just completed a 30-yard catch. Why are we in a rush to get the snap off? 1st and 10.
I have no idea.
And go back to him.
And this is this game management. I mean, Kyle, what did you see in this? I feel like Justin Herbert has perhaps a little more on his shoulders. Have you seen something along those lines, or what do you think of that Everett and that lack of perhaps cohesion between Staley, Lombardi, etc.?
I agree with you that I don't know who to put the blame on for that play, but I just know it's not Everett. He got us there. He got us to that point, and he said, "You've got to be able to communicate." And he did in that sense, and said, "I am gassed. Get me out." And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Herbert that said, "No, we're going," or Staley or Lombardi. I couldn't catch on the feed who made that call, but Herbert needs to get to the line. Herbert had to have seen that as well. And if he didn't, he probably should have been able to read Everett's body language a little bit, or I'm sure Everett said something, because he was telling everyone, "I'm gassed, get me out." To then target him to a spot was a mental lapse for Herbert, because he threw it to a spot that he was expecting Everett to get to when Everett was gassed. And good on the Chiefs player. They get paid too. They're showing up to collect a paycheck, and we've all heard already, the guy was working at a grocery store, making his way through college 2 years ago. It's a feel good story. Why the heck he got a pick and Asante didn't get one of the 4 opportunities he had blows my mind. But I don't see Herbert failing to grasp the offense yet. I felt like he had a mental lapse there. What I am disappointed about is we got all this talk about how his first time in a system for 2 consecutive years. We've already taught him the basics. Now we're going to get to do the fun stuff. What are you promised us that in the offseason, Lombardi? What is the fun stuff? Is the fun stuff your double reverse pass behind the line? Because that wasn't fun for me.
That wasn't fun for anyone.
You have a cerebral quarterback. Those are the kind of trick plays you do when you have a quarterback that can't read progressions like Herbert can, that can't do some of that crazier, more fun stuff. So
come on, if that worked for a 50-yard completion, we'd be hailing him as a genius. I don't mind the occasional trick play. Well, Chargers never run them, so I don't mind trying it. Maybe not on a 2nd and 2.
But you know how I feel what Lombardi is? Lombardi's this guy that doesn't go out with his mates for months and months, and he's just like, "Nah, sorry guys, I'll come out for one, or I'm driving, guys, so I can take people home." Then there's that time when he just gets so drunk that he's the party pest, and he just goes, "Oh yeah," and everyone has to look after him. There's this dichotomy between what he's calling generally, and then all of a sudden this weird spot he just launches, and it's probably at this child's birthday party where he decides to drink 20 beers and go nuts, and that's where I see it. I find one of my questions was is Lombardi dynamic enough? Does he have or is he just too Jekyll and Hyde? I don't know, Alistair. I know you were going to say something just before, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, that was good. Why don't I say something positive? Because I'm clearly fired up on today's show. It's been a really rough few days for the listeners. Very disappointing. I want to be positive. Josh Kelly, for mine, keeps making the most of every possible opportunity. And it's got to the point where I think he's earned more snaps. And Eckler is struggling a little bit running the ball. Michelle has been okay in patches. Josh Kelly has made almost every carry a winner. He had 20 yards after contact in this game from his 4 attempts for 22 yards. And he did the same thing against the Raiders. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of him. And then another positive, Zion Johnson, outstanding performance. I'll throw back to you, Jack, as I'll let you burst out of the seams to talk about him. But what a performance by a second game rookie.
I was watching him go obviously up against Chris Jones for a majority of the game. And Chris Jones is not a small human being, mind you. So he's probably one of the larger defensive tackles, not only in just his physical size in terms of length of leverage in his arms and his legs, but just he's a massive man. And I tell you what, Zion Johnson has got a grip of inside those shoulders, and he's just holding him. I can't remember seeing Chris Jones be stopped by, let alone a second game player like that. I thought he was outstanding for the job that he had to do. Incredible. Generally, though, the offensive line, I'm a little bit worried. I sort of had my rankings here. When Lindsley and Slater are on the field, they're complete players, both in the passing game and in the run blocking game. Corey Linsley obviously brings the leadership importance. We touched on that earlier. Zion Johnson, he needs a little bit of help in pass protection, but as I said, he stood up far better than the other two. Storm Norton had 26 pass blocks. Will Clapp, as you said, Andy, had 32 pass blocks. He was okay. I thought he was serviceable.
Okay.
The one thing that I'm now, because I've seen 2 games and I've got tape on him, is Matt Filer. What's going on? He was our worst per PFF, and I know that we not necessarily take grades, but the PFF ratings, he was in the red, and that really backed up what I saw on tape.
Yep.
So I don't know what's going on with him, whether he's just easing into the year and he needs a bit of time. But Filer, I'm now saying that he's more of a worry through the first 2 games than Pipkins is, because again, I thought Pipkins was fairly serviceable.
Yeah, Chris Jones is a tough matchup, so let's monitor him over the next few weeks. But agree, he hasn't started off the season too well. Kyle, could we flip to the other side of the ball? Because I know you've spent quite a bit of time thinking about how this Brandon Staley defence gets deployed, particularly because you looked at the Week 18 Raiders matchup last season. Flip forward now to the present. Are you seeing any differences in how Staley's running his scheme, or how do you think the defence is going?
It's night and day. A lot of the responsibilities are still the same for the individual players, but the way he's implementing them are a lot more creative and are potentially creating mismatches. And I think the 2 most telling differences to me are a lack of confidence, a previous lack. Now he has an abundance of confidence in his cornerbacks, enough to bring Derwin to the line of scrimmage a lot more and start utilizing him as a chess piece. We wanted to see more of that last year, but I really feel like early on he was trying, and we were just kind of hemorrhaging yards all over the place. And
Chris Harris was a total liability.
Total liability. It was disgusting to watch, And now, before, they were keeping both Derwin and Nas pretty far back. Every now and then he would float a little bit towards the hook zone, but he would never really... He was so rarely coming to the line of scrimmage, and now we're seeing him up there a ton.
Edge rusher,
moving him around like crazy. It's great to see. And the other looks that I believe are going to almost single-handedly change our defense and our success this year is our linebackers are playing at the line of scrimmage a lot more, which is great to see. Because their coverage assignments are so basic, like we've talked about. All they have to do is backpedal to that hook zone and let receivers either go above them and try to knock them back a little bit extra deep to get them over into Nass's little trap that he's laid out there. He's spying people coming across the field and going over the linebackers trying to get a pick. But that or letting those catches come underneath them and come crashing down on them hard. But when they're sitting at the line of scrimmage like that, they're able to get that first read and not give the linemen a free run at them with speed. Before, we had Murray and we had Tranquil or White or whoever it was sitting about 5 to 7 yards off the line of scrimmage watching the play, and if we only had 4 guys on the front, our 2 defensive interior players or interior defensive players and our 2 edges, both of our linebackers had a guard coming at them full speed that would just be able to take them out, wash them out of the play completely. And now instead you're seeing Murray is smartly waiting until after, the quarterback has made his adjustments, right when the cadence is happening, he's crashing in just before the snap or comes to the line of scrimmage, after the offense has made their adjustments. He's often coming in with speed and is crashing down on the lineman. We've seen plays where he has physically dominated linemen and then gone across their body, played the gap and a half, whatever he's had to do.
Yep.
Or if it's a pass rep, he's come right back. And we could do that because the linebackers have an easy assignment, so we need to be doing that more. So that's been great. And then like we were saying, Derwin floating around everywhere has been fantastic. And there's been a couple other weird looks that we've had.
I agree.
For the first time, I've seen us run with 1 interior defensive player and then, just have it bring in an extra linebacker, or actually one time we brought in an edge, 1 interior defensive player. So we had like a 3-man front, but then we brought 2 linebackers to the line of scrimmage and had 6 DBs behind them. And Yeah, that was a really cool look too. So it's getting creative, guys. It's getting fun. Staley is got his chest full of toys and is having a great time with them. But what is something that you've noticed, Jack? What about the defense that you've really liked?
Yeah, that's. I'm going to throw something back to you in a second, and it's about JC Jackson and just the technique, because I sort of wanted perhaps an American to analyse it there, but 100% right. I'm very cognizant of the fact that we're Australian and I'm talking about the technique of things and, what is technique in the AFL game and what is technique in the NFL game. So I thought, as you said, that amoebic or that really interesting defensive front, I was seeing Bosa line up, with a good 2 to 3 metres of gap or air between him and a defensive tackle, and it's really, really wide. I love that. I also thought, I mentioned on last week's episode, the pass rush discipline. There was one play that I can remember when Bosa sold the house to go around the outside to try and to get Mahomes, and he popped out. I generally think, though, the pocket was kept fairly tight. Mahomes was under a hell of a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah.
He just made some incredible throws, and he was rather than popping out to the side, he was actually stepping up quite a lot, which is kind of where you want Mahomes to be. So I thought that the line was pretty good, and
Jack,
I love that amoebic
Jack, where we can get this really going, I think, is if Sebastian Joseph Day can lift his game. I think Austin Johnson's playing well, and I think Sebastian Joseph Day so far has been the same or worse than Justin Jones. Watching this game against the Chiefs, he struggled big time, and week 1 he struggled too. So he's just one guy to watch, hasn't quite hit the ground as I was expecting.
Yeah. Again, I mean, you were sort of saying last week in defending his PFF grade, saying that he actually looked better than it was. So interesting. Interesting. You've you flipped this one. Just on Kyle, what I was going to ask you, the JC Jackson coverage on Watson and that touchdown. To me, that looked like a complete breakdown of technique. He's twisted to the outside, and then he's actually then had to make up ground. And realistically, he's missed that interception by a fingernail. Is that something that... And then Staley has come out and said, no, he's played the correct coverage. But is that something we really want to be seeing from arguably the best cornerback in football? I don't know. I was a bit worried looking at that.
There's multiple things about that play that weird me out. Number one is that he was on that receiver to begin with. Because the whole point of bringing J.C. Jackson into this defense was for him to lock down who we saw as the number one threat. And then be able to, or either the number one threat or whoever's on the weak side, and then he's able to isolate that. Like, we don't have to worry about giving J.C. any help with that one person, so then we flood the defensive coverage to the other side of the field. So for number one, for it to be as weak of a player as it was, no offense to him, he made a great play. He was on a practice squad last season or 2 seasons ago, whatever it was. Like, he's relatively a no-namer. So that was odd. So, okay, if it was the weak side guy and we're leaving JC alone and on an island so we can focus on everybody else and overload zones on the other side, then why would JC have over-the-top help? That doesn't make sense. So it doesn't seem like it was a Staley scheme play. It looked like JC bit on his first move. And if he was supposed to have over-the-top help, then I think that's okay. If the point of having over-the-top help is, yes, you're allowed to bite when you see something. If you want to try to get that pick because you have the over-the-top help, you can afford to do so. In watching that play a couple times through, nothing indicated to me that Nasir Adderley had that responsibility.
Nope, there's nothing there.
There's nothing. Normally, when Nasir's playing deep, he's normally 15 yards back. He was 8 yards back, 9 yards back at the time of the snap. So that doesn't add up to me one bit. It's not that he bit on Kelsey. It looked like he lined up like he was meant to double him the whole play. So that... And we could talk about why Staley would be throwing Nasir Adderley under the bus to try to protect JC, too. That's another very weird dynamic to me. That doesn't
or
make
Adderley
any
has
sense.
gone to the wrong spot. We don't know. But I agree with you. On the rewatch, it didn't look like there was safety help.
Yeah, it was weird how Staley sort of defended it by saying, no, the coverage was fine. There was just no safety cover over the top. Well, have you not schemed for that? Like, have you allowed him to bite on the route and know that he's on an island? Yeah, it's interesting. But once again, we're seeing a gash up the seam for that play. Yeah, that's.
I have a quick question that I'm very interested, Jack, to hear your opinion on, because I've only heard wrinkles of it recently, whispers about it. Some criticism that Brandon Staley did not take Herbert out of the game at the point in which he showed ostensible anguish. And are you not protecting your players in a spot where you should as the head coach there?
What do I think? Herbert's a grown man. He makes his own decisions. He's a leader on that team. It's a watershed moment for leadership as well. I sort of, in my head, I was thinking of the Matthew Stafford when he separated his shoulder in that final drive, and he's screaming in pain and going, that kind of sound. And he comes back on the field and he throws that touchdown. He's and he's sort of whimpering.
It's out.
Yeah. It's out. And
you guys are nailing this audio. I feel like we're watching mic'd up footage right now.
That's right.
We were there, man.
We just need some.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, sir. Yes, coach.
It clearly. It's really bizarre that he's running. And then he throws that dart to DeAndre Carter. I just go, that's really weird. But that's what, if you look at all the pundits and what they're saying, that it's like, what a leader, what a man. That's what it takes to win. So I think in some ways, it's not a head knock. It's clearly not a broken bone or an ankle or anything like that. You probably knew that it was cracked ribs. Cracked ribs, generally speaking, Andy, you're the resident physio, but they don't get any worse. They're just very, very painful. But they're at cracked. What was it? What has he actually got in the end?
Fractured the rib cartilage. So your ribs attach in your spine, come around, and there's your sternum, but also like cartilage that lines between the rib bones and your chest bone, and he's damaged that. Now, I'm fresh off a rib injury myself. They absolutely suck. They are completely debilitating.
Wally, was it?
Hey?
Wally, was it?
No, just coughing and being 33 and aging poorly. No fun. What kills me though, I just want to kind of go back a little bit more. We're talking about Joe Lombardi's play calling and not providing. What is it that Herbert misses? Comes off the field, comes back on, and then unleashes an absolute laser, a total dot down the field, and Staley's going, you're not going to see anyone in the league under the circumstances making a play like that. Nobody. Why does it come to that? Why are we vanilla until the point where we need to explode into some kind of Rocky Road bubblegum business?
Because we punted on fourth.
What down was that?
4th and 1.
It was 4th down, and that's when we threw shots. I don't understand it.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. I'm not gonna knock Herbert for it, but that play where it was the one right before, he had the chance to walk in the first down, and he just goes, "This is cooked. I'm just throwing it into the turf." Oh, don't worry. Next snap, bang, laser beam.
He could have walked
down
it,
the hatch.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Had 6-7 yards of space in front of him, but he's just sort of gone cutting sick about it. More positives. Let's get some more positives going on. Kyle.
Positives?
Yeah.
All right.
Come on, man. Try.
So this is. I don't mean this to be taken as a negative. This is a positive. I actually think, Alistair, you pointed out that there was a very significant gap between when Lindsley was in and when he was out, right? In looking at the footage again, I really believe that the more substantial issue, or the bigger issue, came when Storm replaced Pipkins. Before that, when Lindsley was out, we still had that great series to open up the half where Mike Williams scored that touchdown. Shortly after that, our next drive was a quick 3 and out when we were backed up against the line, if I remember correctly, or was that when Storm went in? Sorry, I may have been a brain fart there. But
Storm came in after halftime. Yeah.
Storm came. But we did score that touchdown with Pipkins in, Clapp in, and it was really what I noticed in watching things over again. Clapp did okay. The biggest thing that he was messing up on, in my opinion, was he didn't recognize when Chris Jones was hanging over Filer, and sometimes there were a couple times where, for whatever reason, he looked to help Zion, even though Zion had the easier matchup, and literally turned his back to Filer and Chris Jones and let him get beat. whereas Lindsley was always helping wherever Jones was. It seemed like. So that was my my biggest take. I think Pipkins is doing much better than we ever could have anticipated so far.
Agreed.
Yeah. Now that's fair. Before we move on and break up the show a little bit, I just want to point out, Kyle, you made a really good observation about commenting that Mahomes was better than Herbert. We kept the Chiefs' offense to 17 points after they put up 44 against Arizona last week. Now we've, on paper, a much better defense than Arizona. Our goal line defense was impressive, keeping them to 0 from 3 red zone attempts. They punted 6 times. Our missed tackle count was down significantly. Like Drew Tranquil started the game off like he was shot out of a cannon. Probably the biggest missed tackle culprit with, I think, 3 or 4. But, still got that sack assist for Mac to finish off Mahomes deep in the backfield. He was there. He was present, and it was good. Well. So that's 2 strong games from him. Look, Asante Samuel Jr., I can't defend him too much on that, whether the interception was caught, because he dropped it straight into his knee and made it very hard for himself. You just got to clunk that. Tap it down, like same as the red zone interception. Or not interception. But we digress. I think we're all... Jack?
I just think we haven't mentioned
You can talk now. You put your hand up.
I can
good
talk.
boy, good boy.
I'm a teacher. I put my hand up. Please serve me. I have an opinion.
I actually didn't know you were a teacher, mate. That's astounding.
I'm not sure if you realise that I'm a teacher. We haven't mentioned his name at all, but Mike Williams had a hell of a game. And that's the reason why he got paid, and he deserves it. He did go missing in the second half a little bit, but he had that incredible touchdown. We have touched on Everett, but I'm just saying that he is everything that I didn't think he was going to be. Gerald Everett looks like a 4th wide receiver out there. The way that he moves and his pass blocking, I think, has been far, far more capable than anything else. So even though there was that really important play that whose fault was it, we don't know, Gerald Everett has been a receiving weapon. And Mike Williams played an incredible game too. I just thought I'd let's leave it at that, I think, but those 2 were outstanding.
Nice one. All right, before we get into the Jags preview, let's play a bit of a game.
Woo! 2000 Microstar goes in the hole. Come on. Live. Buy, sell, or hold.
Jack, mate, what do we got going on here?
Well, this is a game called Buy, Sell or Hold. So what's going to happen is that each of us has some hot takes that we're going to put out to individuals. And those individuals are going to have to decide whether they're going to buy that take, they're going to sell that take, and they don't want anything to do with it, or they're going to hold on it because we're not too sure. So I'll get things going. And I'm going to throw this one to Kyle straight up. So I'm on the trading floor. Just before we see the Dolphins play tomorrow, I'm going, I've got to sell. Kyle, Mike McDaniels will win Coach of the Year. Are you buying, selling, or holding that?
Oh, I'm selling that.
Okay.
No way. I still believe in Staley, baby. I'm going to be a homer to a fault. We have a long way to go here.
Right, pass the phone to me. Shorts, options, buy, hold, buy, sell. All right, I'm going to throw this to Andy. Andy, by season's end, Spiller will have more carries than Sony Michel. Michel's had 11 so far.
Spiller more carries. I'm going to sell that. I don't want to know about that. A point that I wanted to make just quickly before we move on to the next one is that what we did week 1 to week 2 in the run game, the same. And it blew my mind. We spoke about Josh Kelly being effective. I don't think we're really using Sony Michel properly yet, and I'm not seeing any real reason from the output of the 3 running backs to suggest that we need to sit one and bring in Isaiah Spiller. It's the play calling for me, and I don't see Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel's too valuable in the run game to reduce his carries. All right, Jack, I throw this one to you. We spoke a bit about the Trey Lance, Justin Fields matchup last week. We were both excited to see it. The 49ers, having lost that game, now have a relatively difficult schedule leading up to their week 8 bye. Struggles against Chicago in the wet, as I said. They've got a couple of tough divisional contests either side of the Broncos in week 3. Might see the playoff hopefuls slump to a 1-4 early start if they can't pick it up against the Seahawks. Trey Lance will be replaced come week 7 matchup against Kansas City at Arrowhead, and Jimmy G will be the starter. Buy, sell, hold.
Yep, I'm buying that. I haven't seen enough from the 49ers quarterback. I'm buying that. Jimmy G is going to come in and they're going to look a little more coherent on offense. We're obviously channeling the amazing The Wolf of Wall Street, which is all about buying, selling, and holding. Alistair, the Minnesota Vikings have the most intimidating player entrance in the NFL. Buy, sell, or hold?
You're going to have to give me an impression of what their player entrance is.
It's the Viking horn and they run out.
I'm buying that. You know, I love a bit of the old Lord of the Rings, and it is pretty exciting. I love it when they come out with the old...
Some kind of Viking reference would have slapped way harder than Lord of the Rings, but play on! We really know how to play into our strengths here.
All right, it's up to Kyle. Is it on this one?
I think it was just thrown to you. So
all right, I'll throw a question to you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Here's a proposition. In this year's playoffs, there will be at least 2 first-time head coaches whose teams make it. So just as a reminder, the first-time head coaches are Nathaniel Hackett, Mike McDaniel, Matt Eberflus, Brian Daboll, and Kevin O'Connell. At least 2 first-time head coaches will feature in the playoffs.
I'm going to have to sell that. I don't see it yet. I think maybe McDaniels. I think Daboll has got a long road ahead of him. It's going to be a 2-year, 3-year turnaround for that team, the Giants. So, no, I'd sell that for now. But
okay.
Mike McDaniels, you're already halfway there, and he's probably going to sneak into the wild card at least. All right, so Jack, I want to go to you. I didn't realize we were keeping this across the NFL, guys, so I might edit a couple more of these. But
no stress. Whatever you want, mate.
Yeah. Jack, so as we kind of talked about in the offseason, there's tiers to this. There's levels to this, as they would say, when you're looking at right tackle compensation. Morgan Moses got paid $5 million a year. La'el Collins set the market for this year's offseason for right tackles at $7 million. Cornelius Lucas, 3.25. So if I'm Trey Pipkins' agent, would you give me an offer for extending Trey Pipkins around 2 years, $3 million a year? Would you take that?
I will hold on that. I will hold. I think with the line as it is at the moment, I'd like to see what prospects we have in the first 4 rounds at right tackle as rookies, because I think that with Zion Johnson in a second year next year, he's going to be a very, very good anchor for if there is a rookie available. So I'm going to hold on that. I'd wait and see what the prospects are and what the free agent market on right tackle is. If I were to buy it, I think $3 million, 2.5 to $3 million for 2 years is probably almost bang on. And if he's asking any more of that, get out of town. Andy, I've crossed. You're the last one I'm going to send this to. So this is a little more of a meta one. Cleveland's new logo, Brownie the Elf, is an improvement on the helmet. However, even elves can be a little naughty.
Okay, so is the proposition that their new logo is better? Yeah, I'm buying that. I'm buying that because the helmet was probably the most vanilla thing that's been around on this league from a marketing point of view. I don't know about the name Brownie. I know you've got a good mate called Brownie, so you might have some stronger affiliation with that than I.
Maroon.
The elf as well, it's a bit, how you going? But look, you can't do much with that organisation at the moment to make them seem any shitter than they currently are. So, sure, a little bit of fun. I'm buying that. I'll take Brownie the elf over the helmet.
Love it.
All right, Alistair.
Yes,
the Broncos seemed to struggle last week against the Seahawks, capped off with a humdinger of a coaching call from first-year Nathaniel Hackett. at the end of the game. I don't see it working out between Wilson and Hackett, personally. The first-year head coach will battle, and the Broncos are going to finish last in the AFC West.
Hold the fort on that one. I'm going to give them a bit more time. It was the first time they've ever played all together. It was in hostile enemy territory, one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL, and I thought the actual offensive play calling was pretty good. A lot of the receivers were wide open in spaces, but I agree they will be third or fourth battling out with the Raiders. I think us and the Chiefs are in our own league, but not quite willing to say yet that the Broncos finish last. My last one now, I throw to you, Jack. On Halloween, so the 31st of October, the Chicago Bears will have a winning record. They face Green Bay at Green Bay, Texans at home, New York Giants at New York, Minnesota in Minnesota, Commanders at home, Patriots in New England, and the Cowboys in Dallas. And of course, they're 1-0 at the moment. Chicago Bears will have a winning record come Halloween.
I've just done a quick win tally as you were saying each name, and I'm going to have to buy that. I like the Bears, and I like Justin Fields. I think they're going to be okay. Shout out to, actually, speaking of Chicago, there's a fantastic show on Disney Plus at the moment called The Bear about working hospitality. So if you haven't watched that, go watch it because it's proved to be fantastic viewing. I think I'm all out of them. So Kyle, did you have a few more buy, more sell? I can't remember. Or are you? Is everyone out?
Yeah, I'll send this one to Andy. Andy, if, let's say, Tom Brady does play this year, he is either going to finishes out this year and decides to play again next year, he's effectively going to decide to play until he's 50. At the end of this year, he's either going to retire. If he decides to play again, he's out with Giselle. She's given him the ultimatum. So if he's choosing to let her go, he's going to play until he's 50. Would you buy that?
Goodbye, my lover.
Goodbye, my friend.
That's a great question. I'm going to sell it. Look, the stuff on the home front is it's bad. It's bad from that point of view. He's essentially lied to his wife and said, "Yeah, baby, I'm going to look after the kids. Nah, I'm not doing it this year." She's a babe, and sure, he has probably had he's probably had more plastic surgery than she has. But I'm going to say this will be his last year. I'm sticking by that. All right, I've got one more, and as it happens, it's going back to you, Kyle.
Okay.
So I've just got to pick which one I want. I've spoken about the Vikings. Okay. Chargers related. The injuries to the O-line starters and Justin Herbert coming out of this week's game could prematurely derail the season. But it's not going to matter because the Chargers defense will be the highest scoring defense in the NFL, and we can ride off their coattails.
I'm going to sell that. I love it. I love the thought. We're in too tough of a division, and I don't think Chase Daniels can carry us. And it's going to get right back to what has frustrated us so much on Bolts from the Blue. But we're going to have retained 2 roster spots and have about half a backup quarterback. So, I think Chase Daniels is a great mentor. I don't know why Easton sticks there. I don't think we're going to find out either.
Oh, well, if he gets sat, then we're probably going to activate a second quarterback. And everyone who said, well, why are we carrying 2 quarterbacks, why are we carrying 3 quarterbacks? Justin Herbert's never going to get injured. That's all mud on the face. I agree with you, though. I don't think that either of those guys is going to be enough. I mean, Chase Daniel looked good on his handoff on the one play that he had. But, I tend to agree with you. I don't think we have any stability in our backup quarterback room.
Gotcha.
All right.
I do have one more. I haven't asked Alistair one yet, so I got to send it right away. So
quickly,
Alistair,
59 on the trading floor. Here we go.
Yeah, before the trading floor is closed.
Quickly.
Before we ring the bell.
Alistair, Aaron Rodgers was just setting the degree of difficulty for the rest of his season this last week. After this week, he's going to take off. He's going to do very well, especially after the bye week. They're going to go on a hike, do some ayahuasca, come together as a team, and he's going to return to be a three-peat MVP in the National Football League, 3 years in a row. That is. Do you buy, sell, or hold that?
I sell the MVP chat. I liked it right until I liked the kumbaya and the matcha tea and some ayahuasca.
And the Percocets.
But I don't think... Yeah, yes, exactly. But I don't think he's got a third MVP back-to-back. There are too many good quarterbacks in the league, so I'm going to sell. And the trading floor has just closed. I got it in. Good job.
Nice.
Done.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got the weapons that are able to help him, Winning 2 years in a row with the best wide receiver in the league is a different kettle of fish to having Alan Lazard as your wide receiver number one and 2 rookie wide receivers who have drop issues.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's our first edition of Buy, Sell, Hold. Our go on the trading floor. We'll refine that, but good fun. All right, let's move right along to our Week 3 opponent, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've got a nice 10-11 day rest heading into that one. Coming out of the Week 2 matchup, Thursday Night Football with the Chiefs, obviously the Chargers had bit of injury news wrap up we've got a bit of injury news wrap up to go through. Offensive lineman Corey Linsley seems to have suffered knee tendonitis just before half time. Look, it seems to be a relatively manageable ailment. I don't know the severity of it, so I can't suggest how many games he might miss. But there is chat that you could sit out 6 weeks to let it heal properly. In the realm of professional sports, there's always painkillers and the jabs, so look, it wasn't too bad with Will Clapp, but I don't want to see Will Clapp as the starting centre going forward. So let's hope for a speedy recovery there. Trey Pipkins.
No applause for Will Clapp.
Yeah, no. Sorry. Pun well and truly intended poorly. Well done. Trey Pipkins turned his ankle early in the second half, was replaced by Storm Norton. And goes without saying, fractured rib cartilage to Justin Herbert. He will be a day-to-day situation once the Chargers return. It is better that he's sort of damaged the cartilage a bit compared to a broken bone. However, cartilage gets far less blood supply as a soft tissue aspect and therefore longer recovery. So, look, I mean, if he sat out for 6 months, it might heal fine. We don't want to even mention that. So that's what I've got from the Chargers news point, guys. Is there anything I've missed out or things that you think are crucial to be added to that before I throw to Kyle for his Jags wrap-up? Nope.
No.
Okay, Kyle, man, what are you seeing from the Jacksonville Jaguars from Week 1?
Yeah, the Jags, the biggest takeaway for me was I couldn't believe that their biggest offensive performer last year, James Robinson, came back as strongly as he did. I was thinking that Etienne was going to be kind of the locomotive for that team that got everything moving. But really, right now we're looking at a Doug Peterson that has a very Doug Peterson type team. He's got a stable of very productive running backs. He has 2 tight ends at least that he really likes to use in Arnold and in Evan Ingram. And that's very relevant for those that somehow haven't drafted a fantasy team or if you're doing the waiver wire hunt. Peterson, while with the Eagles, gave his tight ends a 32% target share, which I thought was really interesting. So he really flows through the tight ends. Very high, very high. So in that time, Ertz had a 4-year period where he received between 106 and 156 targets for 4 years consecutively. So the Chargers can, in a few ways, implement a very similar strategy that we had against the Chiefs, just with it, being kind of a watered-down version of the team we just played. They have a mobile quarterback that does have an arm, does like to improvise, isn't as good at it, but similar traits there, and a lot of things should be flowing through the tight end. Although Peterson does seem to have taken to Christian Kirk, because he did get a decent amount of targets and had a pretty decent game. But it should be interesting. I think on the other side of the ball, what's most interesting to me about this team, though, is that their the first overall pick, Walker, in Week 1, made me feel like a fool for thinking that was a very terrible pick. The guy got a tackle for a loss, a sack, and somehow made a beautiful read and got an interception, which it was mind-blowing to me.
Ball that he batted down himself. Incredible athleticism. Some of the bend that he was having around the line as well. Oh, man, he he really looked to cast doubt on those who said, "Can't believe you spent number 1 pick on him." He was impressive, man.
Oh, guys, if we'd all been playing buy, sell, or hold 6 months ago and you said, Kyle, the Walker is the third best defensive lineman on Georgia's front, I would have said buy. I believe so.
Yeah.
Like they had Wyatt and Davis that I ranked above him. But hey, Jaguars making the great decisions, not something I'm used to. So other than that, we get to revisit Rashawn Jenkins, an old safety of the Chargers. That's kind of exciting. But overall, it's a team that at any given point does seem to be well matched with its head coach. I would not be surprised to see them perform well. The biggest thing to watch for is what kind of game they have this week, because this is the game that every year they typically go and pick up a win. They play Indianapolis very well at their home. So are we going to see a Jaguars that's coming off a very big emotional victory if they beat the Colts again and have the opportunity to be above 500 for the first time in a long time for that organization when they come to play us? So that's pretty much what I've got for my preview. But let's go back to Jack. What do you have for Jag strengths and Charger threats?
Yeah, I think we're going to unpack a couple of things that you said there, Kyle. I definitely saw when I watched the game that Lawrence is building that chemistry with his receivers. I think Christian Kirk and Zay Jones they had 21 targets between them, but they only had 12 receptions. So there's some drop issues there. I think that whilst it's going to be fairly predictable that they're going to be targeting the tight ends and the wide receivers quite heavily, but you mix in that, as you said, the Robinson, the Etienne running backs, they've got some weapons. They really do have some weapons. And just a couple of things for Etienne. He had 4 carries for 47 at 11.8, and Robinson had 11 carries for 66, 6 per carry and a touchdown as well. And again, I think I noted this on I think it was a mailbag a couple of weeks ago, that they're quite different in the way that they operate. Etienne, a lot of his runs were pushing outside, and they were he was really flashing down the sideline or wanting to get there, whereas Robinson is a little bit more of your power runner. But both of them can catch out of the backfield. So our linebackers and Kenneth Murray is going to have a big, big task. And the other thing that I thought was fascinating is that the Jags rush defense only gave up 3 yards against Washington. Now, it'll be the one thing that I want to watch is the rush defense against someone like a Jonathan Taylor and see how well they hold up there.
Yeah.
Because 3 yards per against Washington is amazing, yes, but it's not a Jonathan Taylor or an Austin Eckler. You touched on Trayvon Walker, but Devin Lloyd had 11 tackles on his debut, and I thought he played really well. So just a couple of things there. They've got a lot of weapons, and I think Lawrence is slowly learning. So we're going to our secondary and our linebackers, I think, are going to have a big job to do on when we play them.
I think they need to realise, Jack, that they need to lean into their strength. Because if their running backs are a strength of theirs, last week they only let them carry the ball 15 times between them for 113 yards. Why did they have Trevor Lawrence throw it 42 times? I don't know. I think they need to lean into that strength. And I also thought Foyesade Aluakon looked active next to Devin Lloyd. I agree 100%. And they were 23 and 33. So you're not used to seeing those numbers on linebackers. They're mega athletes. As to their weaknesses, I still think there's quite a few, because as you said, they're a young team. They're still learning their craft and learning how to play together. I actually think Trevor Lawrence is struggling. Whether it's to do with Urban Meyer last year, I'm not very impressed with what I'm seeing out of him overall. We're talking about an overall number 1 pick who they drew comparisons to John Elway, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. He's woefully inaccurate. He's throwing the ball behind receivers late. His base doesn't look stable in the pocket. But then every now and then you go, okay, there's the arm talent. All right, that was a zinger. So the talent is there, but on a week-to-week basis, he is still highly unpredictable.
Play-by-play basis, he's inconsistent.
So I think there will be ample opportunities for the Chargers to, pick the ball off, for example. And then I guess another weakness I thought was noticeable is the offensive line. Whether that is matched to Lawrence holding the ball a bit long, I'm not sure, but they gave up 20 pressures against the Commanders, and you can attack, Cam Robinson at left tackle is not fantastic. Ben Barch at left guard, their center's a rookie. So those were 2, clear weaknesses that were noticeable to me. Any other particular weaknesses? Anyone else? Maybe an Andy? Do you think anything else they struggle with?
Look, they're both big points. I thought their interior line was far inferior as far as their pass protection. We could get a nice bit of rush in the B gap there, taking advantage. Yeah, like you said, rookie centre Luke Fortner. Cam Robinson was actually probably one of their stronger ones in protection, which was interesting. He's not typically that way. And yeah, for me, this is the same. Really being able to seek the opportunity for turnovers on these mistimed throws. New system for the second-year quarterback. Whole raft of new receivers.
New quarterback coach too, Andy, in the old Mike McCoy.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Milk Toast.
Yeah. Well, gosh, it's just did a good job. Okay, pal. Yeah, you're just not seeing that chemistry between the quarterback and the receivers yet. So I think that's going to be a big avenue for us. Kyle, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think, and you guys have touched on it, I think it's really interesting to pair a rookie center that's not even one of the top centers that came out, right? He was a third-round pick, I believe, with a second-year quarterback. I think one of the smartest things, and I think you guys have probably heard me or seen me say this probably too much on Bolts from the Blue, is I think one of the smartest things we did was go and pair Justin Herbert with a vet center, because that's a very big leadership position on the offensive line. You're making calls, and to have a third-round pick rookie without somebody that can really coach him up behind him, like Rivers used to do, which I still didn't like, but when we had an inexperienced center, at least we knew we had a dog behind him that could help him out a little bit and make some calls for him when need be. So I would expect that offense to struggle early on. Maybe they do ramp up later on in the season as they both gain some experience, but I couldn't imagine being a center and having to adjust to the game and worry about the four linemen around me as a rookie. That just seems very, too much. But that'd be my biggest takeaway. So in terms of keys to victory, though, in Staley's game plan, guys, I don't know how you guys are feeling about this, but personally, and this goes back to us talking about, Herbert being left in the game and putting on that just leadership performance and really amping the guys up. We all saw the players hopping on Twitter afterwards and posting how this is our team. This is we got a squad. If I'm Staley, I'm putting it back on the team right now and saying, you saw Herbert just go out there and risk his body, leave it all out there on the field for you guys.
Sacrifice.
Not to dog the other players, but what injury do you think was worse? Because I saw where I think Trey hurt his ankle, and he stayed out for another series after that, and I think he said, I don't know if I can do it. I think Herbert's ribs are a little more serious than Pipkin's ankle. Maybe even Lindsley's knee arthritis kicking up. That was a more serious injury. He stayed in, balled out. I'm putting it on the other team now. I want to see, like you guys were mentioning, the rushing game come alive. I want to see the attitude of the team change a little bit, and for Staley to give some sort of rousing speech that says, hey, this is a challenge to each and every one of you guys. We have brought in players that we believe we're going to turn this offense into a smash mouth running team that has the ability to both beat you up on the ground and then dunk it over your head for a deep pass. So let's prioritize this. I want to see Xander Horvath get 6 or 8 carries.
Well, so Kyle, does that mean would you go so far as to sit Herbert in this game to let him to recover, or not?
I am torn there. I am absolutely torn there. If you go that strategy, I think you can. I think you try to limit him to quick drop backs, 3-step, some stuff from the shotgun, ball getting out pretty quick, or adding in a little bit of extra protection up front and then sling in a deep one. I would not be upset if we let Chase Daniels play.
I saw you shaking your head, Jack. You're going the other way on it.
Yeah.
But
no.
Is this, fair, Jack, I'm with you, but I want to know, is this relative to Corey Lindsley suiting up, Trey Pipkin suiting up? Because I'm not having, I know it's robbing Peter to pay Paul to say, I'm only playing Justin Herbert injured if those 2 starting offensive linemen aren't there, where in most likelihood, his chance of getting injured further is increased. But if Corey Linsley and Trey Pipkins aren't playing, you just can't play Chase Daniel or Easton Stick.
Oh, God, no. I'm absolutely playing Chase Daniel. I for the reason you just mentioned.
Yeah,
I am not leaving him in there.
You're saying different things. Cole's saying I don't want Herbert playing with that leaky line.
No.
So you're happy to sacrifice Chase Daniel?
Oh, God, yes.
Even if we struggle to put up 10 points on offense.
Yes, absolutely. It's hard to say, but you also look at how much money that man's made per touchdown he's thrown. He's going to be fine. He's made over
$160,000 per pass attempt, I believe.
Yeah,
that's crook.
This is where we're at, I think. This is where we're at, is that we've got a large break. There's enough time to install whatever quick fire offense we need. There's enough time for Herbert to get a rib cage on, to feel it, to understand what the pain is going to be like. There's plenty enough. If it was a 7-day break,
rib cage, I like
fine.
it.
Well, you know how Herbert used to wear
the
that
exoskeleton.
Vest? Exoskeleton. Yeah. If I'm
like
Staley,
I'm
I'm
like
going,
the Guardian helmet, but for your ribs.
Correct.
Mushroom guts.
You know what I'm doing? Like, I'm calling out the defense and saying that Lawrence was hit 10 times against Washington. Let's hit Lawrence 15 times. And you know what? The freaking Jags let Wentz throw for 4 touchdowns and 313 yards. And you know what I'm saying? I'm going, fuck you. And I'm saying, you go out and throw for 405 touchdowns, Justin Herbert, injured. And you send a whole message to the league and we win by 3 touchdowns. That's what I'm doing. Put the Warrior in there. Put the Road Warrior in there.
We almost got through a whole episode without having to use our explicit tag. We get 1 hour and 11 minutes, 2 minutes left.
I've had enough of this conservatism. What's going on with this conservatism? Oh, we're not going for it. No, put Herbert in there. Trust in your guns. Let Herbert cook.
Well, Jack, they played a lot of soft cover too last week too. So I mean, if you want to attack them on the sideline or up the seam for some deep passes, that's where the opportunities are going to be.
Cisco, Jenkins, Shaq Griffin, you can attack them, and they're a young team. If you establish a lead early, they won't come back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd like to see. I spoke about this a bit in the recap from the Chiefs game. I'd really like to see the shift in how we use our running backs, similar to talking about Sander Horvath having 6 to 8 carries. Josh Kelly has the hot hand at the moment. Eckler in gap schemes, it's not working. So we've really got to change that up. Get the play action going early so we can start to utilise their deficiencies down the field with Jenkins and Cisco as the safeties, and Darius Williams in the slot got destroyed last week. So get the running game moving. But look, so much of it's dependent on who's available to suit up on the offensive line, and if Herbert's good to go. Real interesting. Let's go some predictions. I'm going to start us off. I'm going to say that Herbert's going to play with the guts and heart that he showed, and I think it's going to lift the rest of the team. Chargers are going to win 27-13.
I'm going to say Herbert plays, throws for 5 touchdowns, 41-7.
Oh, that's hot sauce!
You beat Chargers 35, Jags 17, Herbert plays.
Right on. All right, Kyle, it's down to you, man. What do you got?
I'll put it at 24-10 Chargers. Herbert plays.
Herbert plays.
And I think the defense balls out, and I think they run the ball a ton.
Yeah, I'd really like to see that. I think that's been the one disappointing thing, is just the lack of consistency in the run game. And
Xander Horvath gets another touchdown.
Yes. Oh, man, how good. I was thinking about it actually when we watched the game. One of the questions that you posed to me, who will have the most touchdowns, Parham, Horvath or Gabe Neighbours?
Incredible.
And I wasn't expecting this start for Horvath. I was pumped when I saw his highlight tape when we drafted him. His preseasons looked great. Man, get him the ball more. The guy can catch. The guy can block. I'm sure he can run. What are you doing? Use him more. I want to see
He
it.
can run. He's a powerful running back. I'm waiting for them to let him
Not afraid of
inside
contact either.
now.
Yeah.
Not just go to the flat, but do a quick Texas route, because that was the route I saw him practicing on his pro day, and it was electric. So once teams start cheating that way because they see that that's a play that we run, wait for him to come across and just tear people right up the gut.
I love it. And good luck to any safety that's getting in front of him. at however much he weighs in the 6'3". Sander Horvath across the middle. Love it. Let's go. Come on, guys. Let's get the energy up. Let's go. We've got 14 days before the game. Come on.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, Jack. Well, yeah, you know, it was hard to get into gear today with dealing with the loss. We're still not quite over it, and there's concerning things that we saw last year. I'm glad that we ramped it up and we got all positive towards the end of the show. It's really good. We're playing the Jaguars. This is the time to bounce back. This is the time where we regroup and we go, okay, we've lost to the Chiefs. Now, no more prisoners. We're crushing skulls, and I want to see it. And look, we're all on the same page. It's going to be a good win. Guys, unless there's anything else for you, I think that's just about all we have time for today. A massive thank you again to Kyle taking time out of your day. Thanks for joining us, man. It is always awesome to have you on the show. We look forward to getting in touch with you soon, hearing all your thoughts and how we're progressing, and looking forward to having you on the show again soon. So let's enjoy. There's not going to be an episode for us until after the next game. Please follow us on Twitter at TDU_charges to get involved in all the discourse. We love hearing feedback from you guys, commenting on YouTube and all that stuff. So, look, you won't see our faces for a well-deserved sort of break. We can recuperate, get back in the winners column. It's been awesome to positively break this down as best we can, and look forward to, hopefully, a big win in Week 3 against the Jaguars. Guys, stay classy out there. And we will see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast.
See ya. See you later.
Back pedals looking, firing, he's got Floyd turning, got it, zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego!
Woo! Good night! Good night to all!